Hey everyone, welcome back to Building Modular Dreams. It's Andrew Copley here, and as always, I've got Mark Byers with me. How's it going, mate?
Hey Andrew, yeah, I'm doing great. Excited about today's topic because we're diving into something that's a game changer, how modular homes aren't just a place to live, but a serious investment opportunity.
That's right. We talk a lot about modular homes from a design and efficiency standpoint, but today we're taking a different angle. We're looking at how modular homes can actually build wealth, and not in some pie-in-the-sky, get-rich-quick way, but in a smart, strategic, long-term way.
Exactly. There's this misconception that property investment means either buying a rundown house and flipping it, or sinking hundreds of thousands into a traditional build. But modular homes, they open up an entirely new approach, one that's faster, more affordable, and honestly, more flexible.
Yeah, and that flexibility is huge. You're not locked into a 12-month build, waiting for delays, dealing with massive cost blowouts. With modular, you're making a calculated move with predictable costs and timelines. It changes the game for investors.
And not just investors, people looking to create passive income streams, retirees wanting to downsize while still making money, or even families who want to maximize the value of their property. There are so many ways modular homes can work as an investment, and today we're going to unpack all of that.
All right, let's start with the big one, rental income. Mark, you and I both know that the rental market is, what's the best word for it? Brutal.
That's putting it lightly. Finding a rental is tough, prices are through the roof, and people are crying out for more housing. If you own land, adding a modular granny flat or even a full second dwelling can be an absolute goldmine.
Spot on. Think about it. You could have a modular home up and running in months, not years. That means rental income starts flowing sooner and your return on investment kicks in faster.
And let's talk numbers for a second. We recently worked with a customer who put a 2-bedroom modular home on their property in Newcastle. It cost them around, about $110,000 all up.
Yep, right around there. And they rented it out immediately for $600 a week. That's over $31,000 a year in rental income. Do the math. That's a gross yield of what, 27%?
27%. That's massive. Compare that to traditional property investments where people are happy with 4 to 5% yields. It's a no-brainer.
And what's even better? Modular homes hold their value, and because they're built to high standards, they're low maintenance. You're not constantly dealing with repairs or costly renovations.
Exactly. Now, some people might be thinking, yeah, but what about council approvals? But we covered that in episode 3, but let's just touch on it here because it's one of the biggest questions we get from people looking to invest.
Right. And the good news, in some cases, you don't actually need council approval for a secondary dwelling, depending on your property size and local regulations. And where approval is needed, our team takes care of it. It's not the roadblock people assume it is.
Yeah, it's funny. You tell people about rental yields and their eyes light up, but as soon as you mention council approvals, they panic. Trust us, it's not as scary as it sounds, especially when you've got professionals handling it. Absolutely.
All right, so we've covered rental income. Let's talk about modular homes as Airbnb or short-term rentals, because this is where the returns can really blow traditional investments out of the water.
Oh, yeah. If you've got the right location, short-term rentals can generate way more than long-term leases. We've seen modular Airbnb setups pulling in $1,000 a week or more in the right areas.
And the key here is cost. Traditional short-term rental investments often mean either buying an existing home, which costs a fortune, or going through a lengthy build. But with modular, you've got a high-end, self-contained unit up and running in a fraction of the time.
Yeah, and with platforms like Airbnb, you're in full control of your pricing and bookings. If tourism is booming, you can increase rates. If demand drops, you can switch to a longer-term tenant. That kind of flexibility is unbeatable.
And it's not just for rural retreats or coastal getaways, urban areas, even suburban locations near hospitals or universities can do really well with modular short-term rentals. There's so much opportunity.
Absolutely. And Andrew, one more thing before we wrap up this part. Modular homes aren't just great for investors now, they're also a future-proof investment. Property prices are climbing, construction costs are rising, and housing shortages aren't going away anytime soon. Modular homes offer an affordable, high-yield solution that makes sense today and in the long run.
Couldn't have said it better myself, mate. All right, that's it for part 1. In part 2, we're going to take a deeper dive into financing options for modular investments, because making money from modular homes is great. But knowing how to finance them smartly, that's where the real magic happens.
Yeah, this next part is going to be a game changer. If you're serious about using modular homes to build wealth, you won't want to miss it.
See you in part 2. Welcome back to Building Modular Dreams. If you caught part one, you'll know we've been diving into how modular homes aren't just great places to live, they're serious investment opportunities. And today, we're tackling one of the biggest questions we get asked. How do you finance a modular home investment? Mark, I know this is something that's been a challenge for a lot of people in the past.
Oh, absolutely, Andrew. For years, financing modular homes was tricky because the big banks didn't recognise them the same way they did traditional brick and mortar houses. If you wanted a loan for anything over $100,000, you were pretty much forced to look at alternative lenders. But things are finally starting to change.
That's right, and we're going to break it all down today. We'll cover different loan options, how to structure your financing for maximum returns, and, this is huge, the recent move by Commonwealth Bank to recognise modular homes as standard housing for lending purposes. That is a game changer.
Oh, mate, it really is. But before we get to that, let's start with the basics. If you're looking to finance a modular home, the most common option is a construction loan. Now, these work differently from your standard home loan. Andrew, do you want to explain why?
Sure. With a construction loan, instead of getting the full loan amount all at once, the bank releases the money in stages based on progress. So, for example, you might get an initial amount for the deposit, then another payment when the modules are being built in the factory, then a final payout when the home is delivered and installed on site.
And that's actually a good thing because you're only paying interest on the amount that's been drawn down. So instead of making full loan repayments from day one, you're only being charged interest on what's actually been spent so far.
Exactly. It keeps your cash flow manageable, which is key if you're an investor trying to juggle multiple projects.
Now, the second financing option is equity loans. If you already own property, you can borrow against the equity in that home to fund your modular investment. This is actually one of the best ways to invest in modular housing because the interest rates are usually lower than other types of loans.
Yeah, and it's a smart move because you're leveraging what you already own instead of taking on a completely new loan from scratch. Let's say your home is worth $800,000 and you owe $400,000 on your mortgage. That means you've got $400,000 in equity. A bank might let you borrow up to 80% of that, giving you access to $240,000.
And that could be enough to completely fund a high-yield modular home investment without needing to save up a separate deposit.
Spot on. All right, let's move on to a newer option that's becoming increasingly popular. Investment loans designed specifically for modular housing.
This is where things are getting really exciting. In the past, if you wanted to finance a modular home, most banks just didn't want to touch it. No, they saw it as too risky, too different from traditional homes. But Commonwealth Bank has just flipped that script.
Yep, and this is huge news. Commonwealth Bank is now officially recognising modular and prefabricated homes as standard residential housing for lending purposes. That means you can now access the same home loans that traditional home buyers get without all the red tape.
And you can bet they're going to get a lot of business from this. With more and more Australians looking at modular homes as an affordable, efficient way to build, this move makes it so much easier for people to secure financing.
I can't tell you how many customers we've had over the years who were ready to invest in a modular home but hit a brick wall when it came to finance. This is going to change the game.
100%. And now that one of the big four banks has made the move, we expect others will follow. So if you've been thinking about modular investment, now is a great time to get in while lenders are finally opening their doors.
Absolutely. All right. Before we wrap up this part, let's do a quick recap. If you're looking to finance a modular home, here are your main options. 1. Construction loans. The bank releases funds in stages, keeping your repayments lower while the home is being built. 2. Equity loans. Borrowing against your existing property to fund a modular investment, often at lower interest rates. 3. Investment loans for modular homes. Thanks to Commonwealth Bank, modular homes are now recognised as standard housing, making financing much easier.
And that's just scratching the surface. There are also options like vendor financing and personal loans for smaller builds. But the main takeaway here is that financing a modular home is no longer the uphill battle it used to be.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And coming up in part 3, we're going to talk about maximising return on investment. Because getting the right financing is great, but knowing how to make your modular home pay for itself, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, we're getting into rental yields, Airbnb strategies, and how to scale your modular investments. And if you're serious about making money in this space, you won't want to miss it.
See you in part 3. Welcome back to Building Modular Dreams. We've covered a lot so far in this episode, how modular homes are a brilliant investment, the different financing options available, and the strategies investors are using to build wealth. But now, in part 3, we're getting into the real nuts and bolts, how to maximize your return on investment. Mark, this is where it gets really interesting.
Absolutely, Andrew. Knowing how to finance a modular home is one thing, but making sure it actually generates strong returns, that's the key to long-term success. And the good news is, modular homes offer some of the highest rental yields and fastest payback periods in the property market.
100%. But before we get into the numbers, we've got some huge industry news that's going to make financing modular homes so much easier. Mark, do you want to break it down?
Oh, mate, this is massive. For years, one of the biggest challenges in the modular home industry has been financing. The major banks wouldn't recognise modular homes the same way they would a traditional home. That meant that if you needed a loan for over $100,000, it was nearly impossible to secure finance without jumping through 100 hoops.
Yep, and for so many customers, that made things really tough. But now, finally, one of the big players has stepped up. Commonwealth Bank has officially become the first major bank to set up dedicated lending for prefabricated buildings and tiny homes.
This is a huge step forward. It means that modular homes are finally being recognised as legitimate long-term housing solutions, just like brick and mortar homes. And I've got to say, good on Commonwealth for leading the way on this. They've clearly recognised that modular construction is the future of housing.
And they're going to get a lot of business from this. We constantly hear from people who want to invest in modular homes but have struggled to secure financing. With Commonwealth stepping up, this is going to open the floodgates for a wave of new investors.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening who's been holding off on a modular home investment because of financing concerns, now is the time to take another look. With a major bank backing modular construction, we're expecting to see even more lenders follow suit.
Spot on. All right, let's get into the real reason investors are so excited about modular homes, the returns. So, Mark, let's start with rental yields. How do modular homes compare to traditional homes?
Well, here's the thing. Traditional investment properties often bring in a rental yield of 4 to 5%, which is considered decent in the real estate world. But with modular homes, we're seeing yields as high as 10 to 15%, sometimes even more depending on location and setup.
And that's because modular homes have a much lower upfront cost, right?
Exactly, because you're not paying for extensive site works, lengthy construction periods, and unpredictable material costs. Your total investment is significantly lower. That means your rental income covers your costs and starts generating real profit much faster.
Let's put this into real numbers. Say you set up a high-quality, 2-bedroom modular home for around $180,000. If you rent it out for $600 a week, which is pretty standard in a lot of areas, you're looking at $31,000 a year in rental income. That's a 17% gross yield.
That's unheard of in traditional property investing. And the best part? You're cash flow positive much faster, which means you can reinvest into your next modular property sooner.
Exactly. And for investors looking to scale, this is where modular really shines. Because these homes can be built quickly and cost effectively, you can set up multiple dwellings in a short amount of time, dramatically increasing your income streams.
And let's not forget about depreciation benefits. Modular homes qualify for tax deductions just like traditional properties, meaning you can claim depreciation on the structure, fittings, and even the transportation costs.
That's a good point. And speaking of scaling up, what about Airbnb and short-term rentals? We touched on this briefly in part 1, but let's dive deeper because this is where investors can make serious money.
Oh yeah, if you've got the right location, a modular home as an Airbnb or holiday rental can absolutely smash long-term rental returns. We've seen investors pulling in $1,500 a week or more in high-demand areas.
And it's not just for beachside or rural retreats. Even city suburbs near hospitals, universities, or event hubs can do really well with short-term modular rentals. The flexibility is a game changer.
Yeah. And another thing I love about modular for short-term rentals, you can customize the design to exactly what guests are looking for. Smart layouts, compact luxury features, sustainable energy solutions. It all adds to the appeal.
And again, because the build cost is lower, you get your money back way faster than you would with a traditional build. Investors who play this right can have their modular home paid off in just a few years.
And once it's paid off, pure profit. It's why so many people are jumping into the modular investment space right now.
All right, let's quickly recap before we wrap up part 3. We've talked about how Commonwealth Bank is leading the way in modular financing, how rental yields on modular homes blow traditional investments out of the water, and how short-term rentals can generate incredible returns.
And this is just the beginning. In part 4, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of how to choose the right modular investment property, location strategies, features that drive up value, and what to avoid when selecting your modular home.
This is where things get really tactical, so if you're serious about investing in modular homes, you won't want to miss it.
See you in part 4.
Welcome back to Building Modular Dreams. We're into part 4 now, and if you've been following along, you know we've covered why modular homes are such a great investment, how to finance them, and how to maximize your returns. But today, we're talking about something just as important, choosing the right modular home investment. Mark, this is where people either set themselves up for success or make costly mistakes.
That's right, Andrew. Not every modular home is a great investment. Just like in traditional real estate, location, design, and demand all play massive roles in how successful your investment will be. You can't just throw up a modular home anywhere and expect it to generate big returns.
Exactly. So today we're breaking this down into 3 key factors: location strategy, home design, and understanding what features drive up value. Let's kick it off with location. Mark, what's the number 1 rule of real estate?
Location, location, location. And modular homes are no exception. The best investments are in areas where demand outweighs supply, whether that's long-term rentals, short-term stays, or even niche markets like student housing or workforce accommodations.
Yeah, and that demand can come from different sources. Maybe you're near a university and students are desperate for affordable housing, or maybe it's a tourist hotspot where Airbnb demand is through the roof. You've even got regional work hubs where industries like mining or agriculture need short-term housing for workers.
Exactly. And let's not forget the growing demand for granny flats and secondary dwellings in urban areas. More and more councils are allowing homeowners to add modular units to their properties, and tenants are lining up for them.
Spot on. Now, let's talk about design, because you don't just want a modular home, you want one that's built to attract the right tenants or guests. What are the key things investors should focus on?
Number 1, layout. A modular home needs to be functional and efficient. If it's a rental, it needs a layout that maximizes space and privacy. If it's an Airbnb, it should have open plan living, natural light, and features that make it feel premium.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean making it massive. A well-designed 2-bedroom modular can sometimes outperform a poorly designed 3-bedroom one in terms of rental demand and returns.
100%. And quality finishes matter. Gone are the days when people saw modular homes as cheap temporary structures. If you use high-quality materials, good insulation, and modern finishes, you attract better tenants and get higher rents.
And let's not forget energy efficiency. More tenants, especially younger ones, are looking for eco-friendly homes. If you've got solar panels, rainwater tanks, or energy-efficient appliances, that can actually make your home more desirable and cut long-term running costs.
Couldn't agree more. And the last piece of the puzzle? Understanding what features actually increase value. Some investors think adding all the bells and whistles will guarantee success, but the truth is not all upgrades give you a return.
Yeah, you've got to be smart. Some things, like high-end kitchen appliances or luxury bathroom fixtures, might look great, but they won't always increase rental yields enough to justify the cost.
Exactly, but things like a second bathroom, extra storage, or even covered outdoor areas, those are upgrades that add real practical value, which tenants and guests actually look for.
So, let's sum it up. If you're choosing a modular home for investment, you need to focus on 1, the right location, areas with strong rental demand, short-term stay potential, or workforce housing needs. 2nd, smart design, functional layouts, quality finishes, and energy efficiency that attract high-paying tenants. 3, value-boosting features, adding the right upgrades that increase returns, not just costs.
Perfect summary, Andrew. And in part 5, we're going to take this a step further and talk about long-term investment strategies. Because once you've got one modular home making you money, how do you scale that into multiple properties and real financial freedom?
Oh, now we're getting into the exciting stuff. If you're serious about building a modular property portfolio, you won't want to miss this next part.
See you in part 5.
Welcome back to Building Modular Dreams. We're into part 5 now, and this is where we start talking about long-term investment strategies. Mark, we've covered why modular homes are great investments, how to finance them, and how to choose the right property. But today, we're getting into the real wealth building side, how to scale a modular property portfolio.
That's right, Andrew. Buying one modular home as an investment is great, but if you really want to create long-term financial freedom, the key is scaling up. And the beauty of modular homes is that because they're affordable, high yield, and quick to install, they're perfect for growing a property portfolio faster than you could with traditional homes.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something we see smart investors doing all the time, starting small, reinvesting profits, and gradually building a portfolio that generates serious cash flow. So today, we're going to break down exactly how to do that.
Yep, we'll cover the step-by-step strategy, the biggest mistakes to avoid, and some real-world examples of investors who've successfully scaled up using modular homes.
All right, let's start with step 1. Leverage your first modular investment. Mark, what's the smartest way for someone to go from owning one modular home to owning multiple?
The key is equity and reinvestment. If your first modular home is rented out and generating strong cash flow, you can take that rental income and either pay down your loan faster or use it to leverage a second loan for another property. And because modular homes are so cost-effective, you can often reinvest sooner than with traditional houses.
Right, and if your first property has increased in value, because let's face it, property prices are still climbing in many areas, you can borrow against that equity to fund your next build. It's about using momentum to keep growing your portfolio.
Exactly. And that brings us to step 2, choosing the right expansion strategy. Now, there are a couple of different approaches investors can take when scaling up. Andrew, walk us through them.
All right, so there are 2 main strategies. The first is the scatter approach, where you buy multiple modular homes across different locations. This spreads your risk. If one area slows down, your other properties keep generating income.
Yeah, this is great for investors who want to diversify and make sure they're not dependent on just one market.
Exactly. The second approach is the cluster strategy, where you focus on one area and build multiple modular homes on the same block or even on the same property, if zoning allows it.
And this strategy is brilliant for investors who want to maximize their returns on a single site. If you own a larger block of land, you could put 2 or 3 modular homes on it, rent them all out, and create an instant high-yield investment.
Yeah, and we've seen this work really well with Airbnb-style modular setups. Having multiple short-term rental units on the same property can triple your rental income compared to a single long-term lease.
Absolutely. And that brings us to step 3, optimizing your portfolio for long-term success. It's not just about buying more properties. It's about making sure each one is performing at its best.
Right, that means keeping an eye on rental yields, minimizing vacancy rates, and making smart upgrades to increase value without over-capitalizing. It's all about efficiency and profit margins.
And let's talk about mistakes to avoid, because there are a few common ones that can slow down your progress.
Oh yeah, the biggest mistake? Overextending yourself financially. Some investors get so excited about scaling up that they take on too much debt too quickly.
Yep. And that's where having a solid financial strategy comes in, or always make sure your rental income covers your mortgage and expenses with some buffer room.
Another mistake? Not researching market demand. Just because modular homes are high yield doesn't mean every location is a winner. You've still got to do your homework on rental demand, vacancy rates, and local regulations.
Spot on. And a final mistake? Not maintaining your properties. Even though modular homes are low maintenance, that doesn't mean no maintenance. Keeping your investments in top shape ensures maximum rental income and long-term value.
Perfect. All right, let's recap the key steps for scaling a modular investment portfolio. 1. Leverage your first property. Use rental income and equity to fund your next purchase. 2. Choose your expansion strategy. Spread risk with multiple locations or maximize returns with cluster investments. 3. Optimize for long-term success. Focus on high rental yields, smart upgrades, and low vacancy rates. 4. Avoid common mistakes. Don't overextend financially, always research demand, and maintain your properties.
That's the blueprint, folks. And in part 6, we're going to wrap up this episode with some final thoughts, real-world success stories, and advice on taking action right now to start building your modular investment portfolio.
This is where we bring it all together, so don't miss it. We'll see you in part 6. All right, here we are. Part 6, the final piece of this episode of Building Modular Dreams. If you've made it this far, you now know why modular homes are a game changer for investors, how to finance them, how to scale a portfolio, and how to choose the right property. But now it's time to bring it all together. Mark, let's talk about taking action, because that's what separates the dreamers from the doers.
Absolutely, Andrew. We've covered a lot in this episode, but knowledge alone doesn't build wealth. Action does. So today we're going to wrap up with some final success stories, our best advice for investors, and the exact steps you can take right now to start your modular investment journey.
Yeah, and before we get into that, let's quickly highlight some real-world examples of investors who have used modular homes to change their financial future.
Great idea. Let's talk about Jason and Sarah from Queensland. They were first-time investors who had around $200,000 in savings but didn't want to sink it all into a single traditional investment property. Instead, they worked with us to build 2 modular homes on a block they already owned. Within weeks of completion, both were rented out, generating over $1,200 per week in combined rental income. That's a 12% yield, and in just a couple of years, they'll be in a position to fund another project.
That's the kind of fast-track investing modular homes allow. And another great example, Emily, a single mother from Victoria, who wanted a passive income stream without taking on massive debt. She financed a 1-bedroom modular home in her backyard using an equity loan, listed it on Airbnb, and within 6 months, she was covering 80% of her mortgage repayments just from that one investment.
It's incredible, isn't it? These aren't far-fetched success stories, and this is happening right now because modular homes open up affordable, high-yield investment options that weren't available before.
Exactly. And for those listening, we get it. Taking the first step can feel overwhelming, but that's why we're here, to break it down and make the process simple and clear.
So let's get into it. What are the exact steps someone should take to get started with modular investing?
All right, here's your modular investment roadmap. 1. Figure out your strategy. Are you looking for long-term rental income? A short-term Airbnb-style setup? Maybe you're looking at adding a modular home as a secondary dwelling on your existing property? Decide your goal first. 2. Check your financing options. If you've got equity in an existing property, that's a great place to start. Otherwise, explore construction loans, investment loans, or even the new Commonwealth Bank lending for modular homes. The key is to get pre-approved so you know your budget. 3. Find the right location. Remember, demand drives success. Look for areas with strong rental demand, limited housing supply, or great tourism appeal for short-term rentals. 4. Choose a modular design that suits your market. If you're targeting long-term tenants, functional layouts, and affordability matter. If you're aiming for Airbnb guests, go for modern finishes and great presentation. 5. Work with the right team. At AJC Modular, we don't just build homes, we help investors navigate the entire process, from site selection to council approvals to delivery and installation. Having the right experts on your side can mean the difference between a smooth investment and a costly mistake. 6. Take action. Too many people get stuck in analysis paralysis. If you've done your research, crunched the numbers, and you're financially ready, pull the trigger and get started.
And while we're at it, let's talk about some common mistakes new investors make and how to avoid them.
Yeah, first and foremost, overextending yourself financially. Some people try to grow too fast, taking on multiple projects at once before their first investment has stabilized. Start with the one successful investment, then build from there.
Another mistake? Not researching your market. Just because modular homes are affordable doesn't mean they'll automatically generate big returns. You still need to choose the right location and know your target tenant or guest.
And this one's a big one. Forgetting about approvals and compliance. Every council has different regulations for modular homes, secondary dwellings, and short-term rentals. This is where working with a team that understands council requirements is crucial.
And here's one more. Choosing the wrong modular home design. If you're targeting young professionals, a 1-bedroom studio might not be enough. If you're doing Airbnb, a poorly laid out home will struggle to attract bookings. Always design with your end user in mind.
All right, so let's recap. If you want to get into modular investing, follow the 6-step roadmap, avoid common pitfalls, and most importantly, take action. Because the only thing standing between you and a successful modular investment is getting started.
Absolutely. And if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, I'm interested, but I need some guidance, reach out to us at AJC Modular. We're here to help investors at every stage, from first-timers to experienced property developers looking to scale.
And that brings us to the end of episode 4. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into modular wealth building, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast.
And don't forget to check out our social media and YouTube for even more insights, case studies, and behind-the-scenes looks at our projects. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode of Building Modular Dreams.